The first type of DTC I want to cover is the continuously monitored DTC. What this is that when you turn the ignition of a vehicle on, the controllers will check for a complete electrical path of the circuits that have been programmed to be checked. They will not check all circuits, only the ones that's been programmed to check for. As long as there's a complete path, no DTC will set. If there is not a complete path, what happens is the DTC will set. On a continuously monitored DTC, if the fault is present and you're to press clear on that scan tool, what will happen is the DTC will not clear. It'll remain there. This is important. It's important, and I'll explain why a little bit later on, but it'll make a diagnostic a lot easier. Because if you classify it as a continuous DTC and the DTC doesn't clear, the problem is with the power and ground circuit. It's not going to be with anything else. It's electrical. We'll get to that. The idea is not to identify a DTC as continuous from the jump. What you first want to do is to see if it's one of the other types of DTCs first. If it's not one of the other types, then it must be a continuously monitored DTC. So we're going to start with identifying the other types first, and if it doesn't fall into one of those categories, it's continuous. So we'll first start with an operational DTC. An operational DTC is any item that has an electric motor for operation. You can use a DTC description to see if it's referencing an item with an electric motor. An electric motor would be an auto back door, a window motor, a wiper motor, sunroof. Even the AC compressor has an electric motor that engages the clutch of the AC. Anything with the AC would be an operational DTC. Let's say that I had a DTC description that referenced the auto back door. I know that the auto back door uses an electric motor for movement. Therefore, that DTC is an operational DTC. What I would first do at this point is try to operate the item. If the item works, the fault is probably intermittent with a connection or a ground issue. If the item does not work, the item is going to be listed as an operational DTC for me. On an operational DTC, the DTC will clear all day long. That includes if the fault is currently present. If I operated the auto back door and the auto back door did not work, that DTC will still clear. At that point, when the DTC does clear, at least I know the fault is going to be with the switch, the electric motor, or something mechanical. I've identified the category that's at fault. We spoke previously about continuously monitored DTCs, and I want to come back to it. A continuously monitored DTC is checking for the electrical path. The operational DTC is not checking for the electrical path. The operational DTC is checking the operation of the switch, the sensors, the electrical component itself, and the mechanical part of the system. By identifying whether it's continuous or operational lets me know where the fault lies, whether it's electrical or not. Let's say I had a DTC description that referenced the auto back door. At that point, this is an operational item. However, when I cleared the DTC with the scan tool, the DTC did not clear. That made the DTC continuous. At this point, because it's continuous, I know that the fault is going to be with the power, the ground, or the electric motor itself. Let's go the other route. Let's say that I used the scan tool to clear the DTC, and the DTC did clear out. At that point, this fault is an operational DTC. At this point, I know the fault is going to be with my switch, the electric motor, or the mechanical part of the system. What I'm doing is I'm using the clearing of the DTC to determine my diagnostic route, whether it's going to be the power and ground circuit or whether it's going to be the operational part of the circuit. Continuous versus operational. We are going to recap. If I have a DTC description that references an item that has electrical movement, I can try to clear the DTC and use the result for diagnostic purposes. If the DTC remains, the DTC is a continuous DTC and the fault will be electrical. Time to start voltage drop test in the circuit. If the DTC clears, the DTC is an operational DTC and the fault will be with the switch, a sensor, the electric motor, or something mechanical that is preventing the item from being able to move. There is a difference when it's the electrical motor at fault. When the fault is continuous, it's electrical. Problem with the motor electrically. If the fault is operational, the motor could be rusted, It could be weak. It's a different type of fault with the motor. If you follow me so far, you'll know that the electric motor is the only component that was mentioned that could be a continuous DTC or operational DTC. There is a difference between the two. If the electric motor is a continuous DTC, you immediately know that it's electrical failure, meaning that the electric motor is probably shorted or open. It's a complete electrical failure where there's not going to be any movement whatsoever from the motor, not even a second or two of any type of movement. Whereas an electric motor on an operational DTC is a bit different. The electric motor is actually operational to some extent. It may be weak. It's trying to move, it just can't move. Even a jam or something crushed could cause a motor not to fully function. However, it is functioning to some extent, which would make it an operational DTC. Keep in mind, before replacing the electric motor on an operational DTC, to check to see if something's jammed, bent, or crushed, preventing the operation of the motor for full movement. Here's what you need to know. I've used the clearing of the DTC to take a diagnostic path. I know that it's continuous, I'm focusing on electrical. I know if it's operational, I'm not focusing on electrical. I'm focusing on the switch, a sensor, something jammed, a rusted electric motor, a weak electric motor, something like that. However, when it's operational, there could be another challenge. What if the fault is intermittent? Here's how I determine if it's intermittent. I operate the item. If the item operates, the DTC set because it was an intermittent fault. If the item does not operate, I can continue with my operational DTC diagnostics. However, remember, if the item did operate, it's an intermittent fault, the item is working correctly right now. On an intermittent fault, if after performing an electrical voltage drop test I had no route to go, I would still take my electrical connectors apart, probably give the male connectors a slight twist to make a tighter fit. I'll use some electrical grease in the connector and plate the connectors back together. I'll go to the ground and take the ground loose and clean up the ground. I'm trying to do everything I can to ensure that the intermittent fault does not return. This is just one item that I'm giving you. There's plenty more. There's a book on Amazon, A Guide to Vehicle Diagnostics, written by Cascanet, my friend, and Robert Schnell, that's me. I provided you with a lot in there. Get the book. It's only $9.95.